Reflections from Egypt. That is going to be the topic of this episode of Chi Life. So as I mentioned in a previous vlog, I've recently spent some time in Egypt. And while it wasn't completely new for me to be in Egypt, I have visited Egypt previously. Because it's not somewhere I go frequently, there were still some new experiences for me there. And, some new little insights or depth of understanding that I found from being there. And I thought I would talk about some of those in this vlog. So one of the things that was interesting for me this time in Egypt was simply being in the desert. Well, for that period of time, I've been in deserts before, but I was there for about 12 days and in summer in Egypt. So, hotter even than it is at other times of year. One of the days when we were out and about, I think on the weather app it showed it getting up to 45 degrees, and the local guide who we were with said it had actually got up to 48 degrees because of course you get different temperatures in different specific locations. That is seriously hot, and it wasn't always that hot the whole time I was there, but it was seriously high temperatures the whole time there. And in that very dry environment, it really drew out it gave me an opportunity to reflect on and observe our relationship with heat, with dryness, and with water. And specifically the way our kidneys respond to both that heat and how they process water a little bit differently when they're challenged in that way. These sorts of things probably aren't all that interesting to many people, but someone with a background in traditional Chinese medicine, and then of course Qigong, and focusing very much on organ functions and how that affects our body and energy, it was interesting to observe that and maybe get some interesting little insights from that are relevant not necessarily just to being in a desert, but understanding a little bit more of the function of those organs as a whole from being in this extreme condition. So that was interesting. I guess connected to that as well was carrying on with that connection to water, was to really observe in a richer way than I'd noticed before, because I was in some different parts of Egypt than I'd been to previously. The value and power of rivers. Now I'm beside a beautiful river here today. So this is the River Maracha in Podgorica, excuse me. And it's a beautiful blue-green river that brings life to the land around it. But this river flows year-round, and while we have had a bit of a dry patch in Podgorica over the last few months, there still has been rainfall from time to time, and so there are other ways for moisture to get into the land around here. In the part of Egypt where I was, again, one of the locals, we were chatting, and he said they haven't had any rain in 2 years. So the land only gets its moisture from the river. Maybe occasionally that it gets it in some other way, but it only gets it from the river. And so the power of that river to bring life really stands out in contrast, much stronger there in Egypt than it does somewhere like this, where yes, the river brings life-giving water, but the land also gets it from the rainfall. In Egypt, this is why the whole Egyptian civilization, going back thousands of years, is arranged around the Nile River, which runs from south to north, and either side of it you have this band of green and this band of life. Now that's not to say there's no life in the desert, but there's a lot more richness of life and certainly of vegetation around those rivers, or that river. And so that was really interesting to have that stand out more. In Egypt, you can, if you're in the desert, you can drive for hours and hours and hours and the scenery is the same the whole time, or small changes with hills and things, but it's brown and dusty and sandy. And then all of a sudden you have green lushness, and it's as you get close to the river. And that gave me, even more of an appreciation of the importance of those rivers. Now, within Qigong, a lot of the way we talk about the flow of energy is in comparison to water. Because so much of how energy flows within our body, within our energy systems, is comparable to the flow of water. And so the rivers within our body are known, well, they're the organ meridians. They flow very much like rivers, and these bring energy to the different parts of our body, bringing health and life. And when there are obstructions within those rivers in our body, it blocks things up and we get issues, we get pain and dysfunction in parts of our body. Now, of course, our energy system is quite intricate, as in fact the circulation of water on our planet is. These rivers connect to lakes, which are like our internal organs, are like lakes and so on. These are reservoirs that support this ongoing cycle. The other thing that we have in our energy system is we have an energy field. And that within that energy field, that's like our personal atmosphere, like around the planet, and within that energy field, moisture can circulate there too, and come down, as clouds, and come down as rain. And I guess in relationship to what I've been saying about the river in Egypt, like, yes, life-giving through the flow of the meridians, but then the energy field has this role as well of also supporting the energy into parts of our body as well. And so in Egypt, we've just got the river, no rainfall. It becomes very clear how that energy field circulation actually fills in some of the gaps effectively in our energy flow. So interesting thing to reflect on as well. Another thing that I reflected on a bit being in Egypt, because I went to some historical sites there and had a guide who told us quite a lot about different aspects of Egyptian history and Egyptian culture. And just reflecting on how there's common threads between all ancient cultures. And when we look at some of these, often what is passed down is in the context of religion and things like that. And while these religions from different parts of the world are different from each other, of course, there are these common threads. And I think even if you don't take in the religious content per se from different cultures, there's still some shared common cultural wisdom, and you could even say spiritual wisdom, often contained within these ancient cultures. And I think there's some valuable things to be gained from that, from whatever culture it is. And so really interesting to look at some of those similarities between ancient Egyptian culture and other cultures that have come since then. And some of the wisdom, some of the knowledge that's passed down within that, even if you don't, again, take in necessarily the religious aspect of it per se, but just some of the knowledge and wisdom contained within that. One last reflection from Egypt, which was really quite interesting to me. So we did go and visit the pyramids, the Great Pyramids of Giza, next to Cairo. And I had been there previously, so it wasn't a new experience for me either. But it was really interesting for me to observe the difference in my experience of the energy there at the pyramids, because the pyramids have a really special energy to them, and my experience of it was quite different this time. And I might talk about this more in another vlog sometime, or possibly it might be something that I talk about in the instructor community for Long White Cloud Qigong, because there's a bit of nuance to this to understand, I think, what's going on there and why my experience was different. But in short, I think a big part of it is to do with the people around the pyramids, because yeah, these places in our, so I wouldn't say it's exactly natural because the pyramids are man-made, but they're connecting to the energy of nature in some quite strong, specific ways. So they have a strong energy to them. But also, we all have our own energy to us as well, and certainly when there's millions of us, well, it doesn't even have to be millions, but collectively, when there's a lot of us and what's going on within our energy, well, that affects each other a lot, and it also affects the energy in our environment as a whole. We actually have a big impact on that. And one of the big differences in my visit to Egypt this time compared to last time is this time things are largely functioning as normal. There's, businesses going on as normal. There's lots of tourists and visitors doing their thing. Last time I was in Egypt, it was shortly after the Arab Spring and some of the troubles that continued to follow after the Arab Spring. I was really, very close to that time. And when I went to the pyramids that time, so the tour group that I was with this time, there were like 6 people. It was just a small group. That is more foreigners than were in the entire pyramid complex last time I went. It was literally, there was me, I was with a local, and there were like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 other foreigners in the entire pyramid complex. So it was an unusual time to be in Egypt, and that gave me an opportunity to experience the energy of the pyramids in a different way, without so many other people and the influence of their energy on the energy of the environment at that location. So yeah, quite interesting time to be there. And look, you might think like, what were you doing there straight after that time with all those troubles? And look, have I mentioned that I'm quite passionate about sharing Qigong? There was a local Egyptian there who had been doing some of the Long White Cloud Qigong online courses, and he invited me to come, and I thought it was a great opportunity to, help to reinforce his understanding of Qigong and the teaching that he would go on to do. So I went, and I've had some other interesting experiences like that in the past as well, where I've just gone wherever there was someone who wanted to learn Qigong. So yeah. Anyway, those are my reflections from this visit to Egypt. Hopefully you might have found some of them a little bit interesting. And I look forward to seeing you on another vlog soon.